Hey everyone, my name is Evan Vieira. I'm the director and executive producer of The Two Embers. I first joined that game company in 2013 to contribute in visual development, concepting, and world building. And today I run my own small animation studio where our focus is on direct development and pre-production. When I was at TGC in 2013 and 2016, contributing as an artist, I was most in love and invested in the world building and also just the ancient civilization that used to exist. Getting the chance to actually tell that story and invest myself in it and help explore that world and the characters of it has honestly been a dream. It's been an absolute joy and honor for our entire team to work with that game company on producing The Two Embers. And what we have prepared for you now is a creator commentary, which will be divided into 4 different parts. Here we will share stories about the process, direction, and also hopefully enrich the overall experience. So we really hope you enjoy. Thank you.
The goal for the first episode is, it's also part of my job. It was to ensure that the world of Sky felt coherent between the game's world and this animated series world, so that people who played the game watching this animation feels like they're watching the story about the same world. We're trying to dig deeper into the lore of Sky, telling the story which hasn't been told before. In the game, we initially rendered the flower as just a simple circles, just because it needs to be rendered real time. When Evan's team presented the concept of a flower, my brain froze for a moment, and I had to ask myself, does this belong in the world of Sky? And it's exciting that we can now render more details that weren't possible in the game. Rendering of the hand is another thing we had to work out. Initially, hands were rendered with like nails and wrinkles and all the details, but it didn't feel right.
I love this market scene because it highlights the social divide between the orphan and then the rest of the world.
Here we see the orphan in a world where there is no sharing. The orphan is completely isolated. We see them go on a journey where they experience so much frustration with this status quo, and the way that they're able to change it is through radical acts of generosity.
The famous manatee actually was designed and started thanks to this animation. When Evan's team asked if they could create a new type of creature for this show, we dug up some of the old concepts from Sky's development. Our creatures typically don't have any eyes or mouth, but for this one we definitely needed a mouth.
This is one of the very few scenes that has not changed, almost from the very, very beginning. We boarded this probably back in 2022, I'm gonna say, and the only changes made to it is more editorial and cutting it down.
History doesn't always wipe away the past, sometimes it layers. In this forgotten temple, we see the world as it was early in the founding of this city, and then we see the layers of infrastructure that have been placed on top of that. These tunnels that are carrying light through the world have decayed and eroded over time.
We finally get to show what those pipes were actually used for. At this time, the light is already scarce and not much is flowing through them.
The purpose of the scene is to introduce the orphan to candle making. Used to be the way that the people of this world shared light with one another and has been forgotten. And so the orphan is the first person to learn how to make candles in centuries.
When we first saw this sketch in the storyboard, we all instantly fell in love with it. And it speaks to me that orphan's deepest wish for this feeling of peace and connection to last forever. Humanity represents everything they've been searching for, like sense of belonging, calm, home, and love. And manatee is more than just a pet.
Really important thing about this is the way that we frame the ruler. They're facing towards the crystal, not out towards the city. You know, the thing that they're focused on is this source of light and power, this thing that is harvesting and collecting and storing all of the light that the city gathers. The purpose of this is to really sort of clearly communicate that there is this figure, this ruler who is responsible for what is happening.
I love how it just ends with this big turn from the orphan's previous scene, which is in this beautiful forgotten temple filled with vegetation and light. And so to end in this ominous tone, I think, is quite interesting, and is one of the only few scenes I actually storyboarded myself. So maybe that's also part of like why I'm fond of it.
Episode 2 is the only episode that doesn't feature a heartbreaking moment of separation, loss, and the death of a loved one.
And we see that time has passed and the manatee is now a juvenile. The orphan has really come into their own as someone who can gather light and create candles. There's a sense that they would have been okay if it weren't for the catastrophe that begins at the end of the chapter.
A lot of really important world building happening here. The light motes that are coming from the sky is a star falling. That's how light is sort of returned back to the world of sky, that a star falls, scatters into light motes, and then sort of pollinates the area. When we smash cut, we see that all of the life has started to grow. This really helps reinforce that light and life are intimately connected.
I'm sure if you played the game, you'd recognize, this location. The ship was already there by the time of this episode. You will be seeing like containers scattered around. Those were containing the light and being carried by the ship. But by the time of this story, the ship is already not in use.
The key thing that's being communicated here is that light is treated by this society as a resource, that it is gathered and harvested and stored for use, but that in doing so, this damages the environment and prevents the life from the world from flourishing.
The candles represent this older way of interacting with light, this very manual way where they would gather light from the world, create something that could be shared. And since sharing intensifies the light, and since this was an inefficient process where a lot of light was left behind, the world was able to continue in harmony.
The scene shows the orphan going back to their roots of their caretaker, the toy maker, and crafting something they would then give out, and not just as gifts, but also as a form of currency with other people of the world. The orphan in many ways is an extension of my wife. That's that she's a veterinarian, and we've always had animals in our lives that she's always cared for. And so this moment of the orphan being able to construct this paddle or this prosthetic for the manatee to be able to fly is just so important to the orphan. It is the best feeling that they can experience by being able to like give this ability to their most important person or creature or partner.
It feels like a timeless moment from a classic like Disney movie. We can definitely feel the pure joy radiating from simply like watching them interact and playing together. Everything moves like a dance. If our movie had a dialogue, I would probably still like this sequence. Has no words.
This was a moment that we knew needed to happen. The city goes from being kind of stable but under threat, right? So that life can continue, to the moment that the defenses fail. Darkness floods in. Everybody is in danger, in immense danger.
The story team did an excellent job putting this out in like really short sequence. One of my favorite shots is the when Orphan and then the manatees are running in opposite directions. It's a striking visual metaphor that reflects how the world is shifting.
This is a city that has been surrounded by this mysterious magical force that is wanting to consume it. This is something that the people of the city have gotten used to, but also understand that if the defenses of the city fail and go dark, that they have to figure out a way to become safe.
This chapter deals with such incredible loss and heartache when the orphan loses their closest companion, the manatee. The writer Liz had just gone through this process of losing a dog whom she was very close to, and I just the same, just a year prior to it.
And we're telling this turning point in a civilization. It's such a lofty story, but here, right at the climax, we have this very personal tragedy that is so relatable and profound in any genre or civilization.
It was always important to me, at least, as grounding the scene so it feels like we're there on the ground with the soldiers.
The squirrels we see in are actually thicker and much more imposing than the models in the game, and I love how we've accentuated their terrifying presence. It's great to see these threats in action. At one point, we were even thinking about a gameplay centered around them.
This is the first time in the show where we really understand what the threat of the darkness is, and when we see the light towers turn on, chase away the dark dragons, we start to understand why this city is harvesting light.
The soldiers are blinded, as the ruler is, by this mentality that if they just make one more sacrifice, they'll be able to turn the tide of this. But you can't push back the darkness by taking away more light.
You might note that the creatures have subtle glow within them. This is because they carry the light, were originally meant to assist in the circulation of the light throughout the universe.
This is probably one of the hardest scenes we had to execute. On the storyboard front, there was a logistics challenge we needed to solve where the orphan, it was believable that they would be held back and kept away from the manatee and not able to get to the manatee's side. Also, it was very difficult in animation to get that expression out of the manatee. We didn't want to be over dramatic, but also needed to communicate that their life is being sucked away from them, and it's physically very painful.
The biggest tragedy of this, of course, is that as we see, the battle is lost and the light is wasted. So, as is always the way, no one really had to die.
But the people who did that were not inherently evil. They believe that harvesting these animals for their light is the last thing that they can do in order to try and save themselves, to try and save the people that they're responsible.
The earliest version of this scene was actually quite different. The orphan goes in their bag and starts searching for a candle but can't find one. And when they can't find one, they then actually leave the manatee all alone and go to find a candle that's in the sanctuary. And by the time that they come back to the manatee with the candle, the manatee is dead. And what we found was that it made us angry with the orphan and not sympathize, because it was so painful for them just to leave their most important friend that it actually cut against them as a character and made us feel more distant from them. So what's interesting is this scene was not a part of the original script. In the original script, the episode ended with the orphan beside the manatee after the manatee had passed away.
This is this moment where this orphan who has been powerfully victimized by the circumstances of their life, they kind of surrender in this moment to anger and rage. Thematically, they are in this moment surrendering to the darkness, looking up at the mountain, find the person responsible for what happened to the manatee and confront them. The goal of episode 4 is to conclude the orphan story. They have discovered this fundamental truth about the world of Sky that many of the people in this story have forgotten, which is that light is made more powerful when it's shared, when it's given from one person to another. And so the whole point of episode 4 was to set them up for this final choice between confronting the ruler or turning back towards the refugees and sharing what little light the orphan has left with them.
This space directly connects from Wasteland to the Vault. During the times of war, refugees were sheltered here. You can catch glimpses of them in the story in the Season of Remembrance.
When Orphan sneaks into the vault, we take our time to reveal what's happening inside. Just one shot explains how devastating this situation is. We see all the time war and like people die and the bodies are bring into the one space because they can have no space to bury them. So it really also talks about how the world is progressing.
This moment was one of the most difficult to write. The orphan wanting to express that rage, to use it to confront the powers that be. And the powers that be exist in Eden. The only way to get to Eden is through the Vault of Knowledge and up the elevator. But the vault is this like strange dream space.
So we started with all these different platforms and a lot of like little homages here and there for the audience to like oh, I saw this in the game. But the more we pulled that away and just made it the platform in this bed of stars and allowed the stars to represent these memories, the more powerful the scene became.
What the Vault Elder sees when the orphan enters the vault is what their nature is. What the Vault Elder wants to do is not take their anger away from them, but show the orphan the memories of their time with the manatee, to remind them of who they were, to remind them of those moments, so that the orphan can choose between the path of compassion and the path of revenge.
This final memory that the orphan experiences of the baby manatee's final moments gives them the opportunity, the catharsis that allows them to release their rage and refocus on the tenderness of this relationship as they just sit here and, instead of trying to solve some problem, lie with their friend and comfort the manatee as they pass.
I think that it's important for the orphan to honor what they have of the manatee in this place. You know, they take the memories that they have of the manatee, they leave them in this memory book that the Vault Elder is holding, and at the end of the episode before they descend, they shelve that book along with the rest of the memories. Preserves the memory of this creature for future generations. You know, and sometimes that's all we can do with someone who's passed.
This is the end of that arc from this ignored, tragic little figure to this heroic person who steps into this crowd of desperate people and shares this last little bit of light that they have. Creates this moment of peace and healing even as the walls are falling around them.
What is light? You know, what makes it more powerful? What removes it from the world? And the thing that the orphan discovers that at this moment in this society's history that they have forgotten how to do is how to make candles. And they take that candle and they light it and they share it with them. And it brings home this very important thing about Sky and about this world, which is that light is made stronger when it's shared. And if this society hadn't forgotten that, then maybe the darkness wouldn't have come, but we'll never know.
Thank you all for coming. It means so much to us to be able to share it with you on the big screen. This project has been a labor of love and years in the making, and so we really appreciate you taking the time to come out to see it.
Thank you so much for coming to the theaters.
Thanks for coming to the theater.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for coming to the theaters.
See you in skies.
Thank